students that belong to a particular year group will stay in a bubble, which is a part of the school that also encapsulates their entrance into school, the route through the school, the social areas that they use for break times, lunch times, and they're allowed to associate with each other within that.
What will happen if a child presents with symptoms that you think might be COVID-19? Do you send them home? Do you wait for their parents to come and collect them?
Yeah,
what happens?
We isolate them. We've got all that in our risk assessment and our plans that we've sent home to parents, exactly what will happen. They will be isolated from the rest of the students within their bubble. They'll be isolated in a room. There'll be a first aider that will tend to them, but obviously socially distanced, and we'll contact parents and get them sent home and tested, and they'll self-isolate until that test, either test negative and then they'll recover and come back in from whatever they had, or if it tests positive, then that could lead to the next steps on those the 4-tier system that was released on Friday.
What are your impressions about how ready Butehaven is for welcoming children back later this week?
It looks to me like Butehaven have put lots of things in place to keep students and staff safe and all people in the school, in terms of new ways of moving between classrooms, new ways of doing lunch times, new ways of operating during the lessons. Lots of things that will take some getting used to for everybody involved. It's been like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, the head was saying, and I think it's been a real challenge and lots of hard work, but the things are in place here to do the best to minimise risk and keep everybody safe.
So how would you summarise your message to parents who today might be rather anxious?
Yeah, so I know my inbox is full of queries and questions from people who are anxious about lots of things to do with going back to school. I think that my message would be that, you know, teachers have done their very, very best to put in place the things that will help. If there are specific questions or worries, chances are other parents have had those questions and worries. Ask the school, find out what the particular details are about how things work. Because here we've seen some arrangements that work for Butehaven, whereas each school is very different and there will be different things in place at different schools.
Moving on to the wider public health issues, I'd be interested to know what your modelling tells you we might expect in Cornwall in the weeks ahead. Looking at Scotland, where the schools went back 2 weeks ago, Scotland's a much bigger place, of course, but in 2 weeks, 20,000 school pupils are now in quarantine, 50 of them confirmed with COVID-19. That's an awful lot of children in Scotland now in quarantine. Might we expect that? It suggests, applying the same maths, in 2 weeks' time we could be looking at 1,000 children in Cornwall.
So, as I was saying earlier, I think that we might have expected a spike after pubs reopening, and we haven't actually seen that in Cornwall. So what we've learnt is we don't know everything about how this plays out, which is why we keep a very, very close eye on what the data is telling us, and why we have been modelling and planning for various different scenarios. What happens if there's an outbreak in a school? What happens if there's an outbreak in a campsite? What happens if there's an outbreak in an area that cuts across both those areas? The public health team has spent the whole summer planning and preparing and practicing a whole range of scenarios, so we're able to respond quickly if we see a problem, if something is escalating. That's part of the picture here, part of what schools are doing themselves to put things in place in new ways of working. That's part of the picture too. And the other part of the picture is everybody playing their part. So children coming to school prepared to do things differently, understanding that there's a real message here about keeping your distance, about washing your hands. All the stuff they've probably got a bit fed up of people saying to them really, really matters in this scenario. But we're doing the best we can to put things in place, and I think that my message would be to parents, you know, to engage with your school, find out what it is that they've put in place in your school, ask the questions, because everybody has worked very hard to try and make sure that everybody's safe.